I hope you're having a good day. I was just outside and it was so beautiful out. I hate to come back in, but I know I need to be here to show you my demo today. So today's demo, I'm going to teach you how to make a wire wrapped heart ring. And these are materials using things you may have at home already. So first off, you need a ruler. You need beads, like seed beads of different sizes. These are size 8, but you can really use any size that you would like. You need 2 different sizes of wire. You need 20 gauge wire. And I get, this is Doris, and it's just basic craft wire. It doesn't have to be silver or gold. You can also get copper wire, but get 20 gauge. You need 20 gauge, and you need 24 gauge. And you can see the difference in the thicknesses. This is 20, this is 24. You can see the difference. So the higher the number in the gauges, the thinner the wire. You'll also need wire clippers. You'll need, I use round nose pliers. You can also use chain nose pliers. You can also use flat nose pliers. A ring mandrel if you want, and this basically will give you the ring size, but you can also just use your finger. If you're especially making this for yourself, you can just fit it on your finger to see how it fits you. But if you want to make in different sizes, often a ring mandrel is a really good thing to have. And then a tool that I like using, it's not mandatory when you're using wire, but I love using it. It's these nylon pliers, because they have this metal section here that helps to straighten out the wire, because when you unravel it from your spools, oftentimes it's not straight. And you can use this. It's a very smooth jaw and it's gentle, so you can straighten your wire. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, you need, for the 20-inch wire, you need 8 inches. So I'm going to measure that on my ruler here, and I'm going to cut that. So you can see it's not entirely straight. It's not too bad, but it's not entirely. So you can, if you have flat nose pliers, you can take your flat nose and straighten it, but I find the flat nose doesn't work as well as the nylon pliers. I'll show you the difference here. Do you see how much straighter and flat that is? So usually what I do with the wire first thing is I will just run it through the pliers here to straighten it out just a couple of times so it's pretty flat and straight. Okay, and then you will also need the 24 gauge wire, and you need 3.5 feet. So bear with me, I'm going to just measure this out. And now you can see this wire is really it's not straight. So I'm going to straighten it up somewhat, although this wire we're going to be using to wrap with, but it's easier to use it if it's not kinked. So you can see see how nice and straight it's looking? You see how kinky it is here? And then now I'm putting it through these wire pliers, these nylon jaw pliers, and it straightens everything out nicely. So I really, and these nylon jaw pliers aren't expensive, and I really find that if you're going to do any wire working, they're a must. Okay, so let me put my ruler away. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take your 8-inch 20 gauge wire, and you're going to take your round nose pliers, and I'm going to grab this in the middle, so it's about halfway, and you're going to bend it in half. Okay, so pretty close to half. I'm off like a millimeter or two, but it's not too bad. Okay, so then what you're going to do is using, if you have chain nose pliers that works, we can also use your flat nose. So what you're going to do with your flat nose is you're going to, the end here, you're going to take your pliers and you're going to squish this bend together. So you just put your pliers in either end here and then just squeeze. And sometimes I find that the wire likes to move a little bit, so you have to, it's easier to put it right next to me rather than up in the air. So I squeezed it a little bit, but I'm going to do a little more so that it's tighter. Okay, that's pretty good. You can see how it's squished together there. Okay. So then I'm going to turn this on its side so that you now squeeze the top part here as well. So first you squeeze the side and then you squeeze the top. And this helps to hold the bend in place, so when you're actually making the heart, it holds. Okay, so kind of looks like that. Okay, so what I do next is I'm going to make the shape of the heart. So what you want to do, you can use your finger like this to get the right shape. You don't want the sides of the heart to be wider than your finger. So what I do, and I want to take, excuse me for 1 second, I want to take my other ring off, and I'm going to put this on my ring finger here. And then I'm going to bend the wire with one hand over, and then I'm going to do the same with the other side. So actually, I need to put it up, not over. So it goes like like this. I had it backwards. I always do this the first time until I look at it and I see. So put it over and then over like that. And it's not exact. I also find it easier to do this with my pliers and make a heart shape with my pliers, and it rounds it more easily like that. So then if I was going to put my finger through like here, You can see it's pretty good, although it's going to be sitting more on your finger like this. The heart is actually going to be more horizontal instead of vertical. Okay. So I've got my heart. So now I've got my heart. So now you're going to take your round nose pliers and you're going to bend the wire so that it's more straight. So this way you'll be able to bead it. And it doesn't have to be exact because the wire is pretty pliable and you'll be able to move things around. But now you're going to be using the 24 gauge wire. So I'm going to take the 24 gauge wire and you're going to bend it in half. So what I do is I take it end to end here and then go like this, and that makes it easier if you get it as in half and it's even. Okay. All right. So you're gonna leave about a 1 foot tail on one end here, which you're gonna be using to wrap other parts of it. So if you're not sure exactly how much 1 foot is, you can always use your ruler, which I tend to like to do, so I'm sure that I have enough. So it's about that much. Okay. So, all right. So with the shorter end, which this end is, you're going to take this end and keeping in mind the tail is there, you're going to wire wrap on the heart around one half here. So, and when I do the wire wrapping, I usually do about at least 2 or 3 times, although I like using the tail end to start here just because it's easier to manipulate. 2, 3. So now the wire is on the heart. Okay. So okay, now using that, I'm going to take my seed beads, just pour some out here. And I know making a heart, but you don't have to use pink beads. You can use any color. And I'm using these. These are kind of like, they have blues and purples. They're kind of iridescent looking. They're really pretty. So you're going to put 1 seed bead on here, on the short end. And I'm threading it on. And now I'm going to hold the seed bead in place, and you want to keep it so it's on the top of the ring, like so. And you're going to wrap, you're going to bend the wire over the top, like towards yourself, but holding the seed bead on there, on the top. And you're going to wrap it around just once. And you can see the seed bead is on there. Now I'm going to continue doing that. Now threading another seed bead. And I'm holding the seed bead on the top. I'm going to move the, and sometimes I like to keep it on the top. Sometimes I'll use my thumb and forefinger to hold it up there so it stays. And then I move the wire towards me and then loop it up So it's on there once. And I'm basically going to keep doing this until I get towards the bottom of the heart. So towards me, and then wrap it around once. You can see how it's looking. The trickiest part of this really is to keep the seed beads up on the top. And you don't have to be very gentle with the wire. It will hold, it will has a lot of give to it, and it will hold easily without breaking. I mean, you don't want to bend it back and forth a lot because that'll break, but for just wrapping like this, you can manipulate it very easily and not be too gentle, because you want to make sure that the beads are staying on there nice and tight. So you can see how it's looking here. And when you're first beading these two, it looks a little organic because the heart is open. But that's okay. It will look more like a real heart once you're done putting the beads on. And you can, again, you can do these really with any size beads, best, or up to like 2 millimeter. If you have like 2 millimeter beads, if you're not sure how big a 2 millimeter is, you can also just take your ruler and measure it on there. You can also use really tiny beads if you want. I have used real tiny ones too. And you can use bigger ones, but I like the look of using the smaller ones better. So these are size 8 seed beads, which are pretty standard. You can find them all sorts of places. For all I know, you may have some hanging at home. So I'm almost done here. I'm going to do one more wrap, but I'm almost done with this part of it. On this side. Is that pretty? So we've got one section of the heart. So, and you want to make sure, as I've done, that all the beads are staying on the outside of the heart frame, which is what I've done. If you put them on the inside, then they'll hit against your finger when you're wearing it. It just won't look as nice, and also won't feel as good. Okay. So when you put these on, you know, it's approximately 12 beads, but it depends on how big your heart framework is. So I have 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11, and that's fine. You know, it depends, you know, it depends on how big your heart is. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to take the longer end of the wire, and I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to pass it down through the middle here of the heart. I'm going to just wrap it once so it's up and over here in the middle. And now I'm going to wrap it around 2 times. And that's just gonna hold it together so you can start beading the other section. So now I'm gonna do the same thing here on this side as I did here with wrapping, putting the beads on and wrapping. So this gets a little harder to do because, hi Victoria, hope you're having a good day. It gets a little trickier because the length of wire you're using is a lot longer on this side than on the other. So again, I am putting the seed bead on, holding it with my finger and thumb, or however is easiest for you, to keep the seed bead at the very top of the wire. Nice to see you too, Victoria. Hope you're having a good day. Okay, so again, I'm going to hold the seed bead here with my finger, forefinger, and my thumb. And I'm going to put the wire towards me. And the tricky part is now I'm getting it stuck in with the other part here. There we go. So, wrap it towards me, and then away, and one wrap, and it stays on. And again, you're going to continue doing this, keeping in mind you want to keep the seed beads on the outside of the frame. And one of the things I also like about this and wire wrapping, it really gives it a very organic look to it, and that's okay. Okay, so one wrap, I'm bending the wire towards me and then wrapping it around once. And the seed bead stays on. And again, it's staying at the top of my frame. So as I was saying, that it's wire wrapping really does create an organic look, and some people like that. Some people don't. I personally like it. I think it adds to more of a individualized look, and it can tell that, you know, it's a one-of-a-kind piece. Even if you make these over and over again, every ring that you make is going to look different, not just because of the different seed beads you may use, but also because every time you wrap it, it's never going to be exact. It just isn't, and that's okay. I think that's one of the beauties of wire wrapping, because no two pieces will ever be exactly the same, because it can't be, because we're not robots. And that's good. So you can see I'm continuing to put seed beads on here. You can see there's on the other side. And I find when you do this too, it can be very meditative. Although with a small piece like this, not as much, because you have to really pay attention to what you're doing. Unlike some kinds of beading that I do, I can completely get lost in this when I'm stitching, for instance. So again, putting seed bead on and holding it with my forefinger and thumb, moving the wire towards me, underneath, wrapping it once. And again, I'm going to go down towards until I'm close to the bottom here. And the trickiest part about this section is just making sure that you're keeping the beads on the end so that they stay put while you're wrapping. Because I've made these a lot at Valentine's Day, and I use like pink or red beads and like really charming rings for the holiday. But again, I mean, who doesn't like hearts? You can wear heart rings really anytime, and you can use different colors, and I love just using different colors. I'm not one to use like the same color all the time. I think it's I think that's boring. I like to use different colors. Of course, says a woman that's wearing a pink shirt today. So I like a lot of color. All right, I think one more bead on here. Probably will be done with this part. And again, the wire you can find pretty much at any craft store. Oh, sure, Victoria, you're asking about the different gauge wires that I'm using. Sure, because you were late. Absolutely. So for the frame, I'm using 20 gauge, and for the wrapping, I'm using 24 gauge. And this is all like base metal. I'll show you again. This is like Beadsmith. I have my it's craft wire, so it's not a fancy. You can, I mean, if you decide you really want to get fancy and use silver plate or sterling, or you can, but you know, when you're first learning to do wire wrapping too, I do really think you should use more of the craft wire, because the real silver, real gold gets expensive fast. And this way you can learn what you do, learn the process first, and then when you've got it perfected, then you can go into the more expensive stuff if you so choose. So yeah, so that was the this is a 24 gauge, this is a 20 gauge. You can see the thickness differences there. You might be able to see me put it a little closer so you can really tell that way. This is 20, this is 24. And again, you can find these really any craft store, even like Michael's sometimes, AC Moore, if you have, although those are closing sadly. Any local craft stores that you have, some bead stores too may have them. You can also find them online. In fact, I find sometimes going to Michael's, I don't have as much luck sometimes finding the gauge wire that I want. So I wind up going to more like a local craft store if you have one near you. Like I have, because I'm in Medford, Massachusetts, I go to Playtime, which is in Arlington, although I'm not sure if they're open right now. But you can also go online. You can find this kind of wire or any other wire online. There's lots of great places you can you can go and order them from. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Victoria. Okay, so I have gotten both sides done here. Try and put it here so you can see. Okay, so both sides are all set. Okay, so now you want to make sure that both these sides are beaded evenly, which they really are. And if they're not, you can sometimes, it depends on what you know, you can add one bead on, or you can take a bead off. Oh, you're welcome, Victoria. So it depends on what you would prefer, what look you would prefer. I try and get them down as close to the end here, which is where it's going to be made into a V for the heart, like that. So I don't usually try and put them in further than past where this little bend is, because that's where you're going to be wrapping to keep the heart, its shape itself in place. So if you find after you wire wrap these that you have one bead that's like higher than the other, they're not about the same length, then you can either add another bead on to one side, or you can just unwrap one bead so that they're even. You know, whatever look you prefer, but the main thing is you want to keep it so that this bend here, you want to keep that available and open, because that's where you're going to start wire wrapping to keep the heart closed. Okay? All right. So now you're going to take your round nose pliers, and got all this wire here, so excuse me for a second. I'm going to just move the wire up and out of the way so it's kind of like this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm going to bend this so that these tails here are now straight, completely straight, straight as possible. And if they aren't super straight, you can also take your nylon jaws, which I love. Again, I've said that before, but they're like my favorite wire working tool. Because see, look at how nice and straight that makes it. They're just like the best thing. I think they're the best thing since sliced toast, or best thing since beading pliers. Okay. All right. So now what you're going to do, I've got this shorter end here, and I'm going to, now that I've got all my beads exactly where I want them, I'm going to trim this short end off. And you want to take your cutters as close as possible to that wire so it cuts as cleanly as possible. And so what I'm going to do, because it's the last wire and I only had wrapped this bead around once, I'm going to just give this one more little wrap just to make sure that the bead stays on. Okay, so now I'm going to take the pliers. There's all sorts of different cutters you can have. I love these because they have a really fine tip to them. I have other cutters that are nice too, but you can see this is a lot thicker. So then there are these, but again, those are thicker still. I like these especially for this because when you're doing work like this and you want to get the cut in really close as possible so you don't have much wire sticking up, if any. So now I'm going to just go put this next to me and I'm going to cut the short end wire off. Okay, so that's cut off. So what I do, whenever I cut wire off, I will take my thumb or finger and I actually will put it on here to see if there's anything sticking up. Because sometimes there is, even just like a little bit, it can get scratchy, which you don't want. If that happens, what you can do is you can take your flat nose pliers and then just squeeze it down to tuck the wire in so that it flattens it and doesn't scratch you. But this one actually feels like I did a really, yeah, this cut nice and cleanly, it's fine. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take the ends together, two straight ends together, and you're going to hold them together like this, and you're going to basically bind these two 20 gauge wires together. So what I do is I start holding them with my finger, and I'll show you. Like, I usually like to hold it like this. It's just easier to wrap it. So now I'm going to wrap it closely about 2 or 3 times here. Okay, so now it is wrapped tight. See that? So we've already got a heart shape. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so now what you do is you can take your either your round nose pliers or chain nose pliers, or your flat nose. I like to use a flat nose, and you can use flat nose, or you can use the round nose. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap close to the pliers. So I like to use my right hand because I'm right-handed naturally, so I like to use my right hand to wrap. You may find differently, or if you're left-handed, you may want to hold the pliers in your right hand and then wrap with your left. But what I usually do is I start with put the pliers here. I start with my dominant hand with the pliers in my hand. Then I move them to my left hand, which is not dominant, and then I start wrapping. And you want to wrap it as close as possible to the pliers. So I'm doing just a little bit at a time. You can see. And then when it gets too close to the pliers like this, then I'll just move the pliers over. And the pliers also will squeeze, will keep the 20 gauge wire closed instead of, so it doesn't pop open. And that keeps the wire tighter. And you're just going to keep wrapping. And again, it's going to look a little bit organic. It's not going to be tight necessarily and as close every time, and that's okay. Like that. And this, and holding the pliers like this will ensure that you're making this as tight as possible. You're keeping the and let me show you what happens when I use my flat nose. Flat nose is also good. Okay. So, and you want to wrap these down as far as possible. So you want to basically bind these for at least 1.5 inches. I like my round nose pliers better with these, I think. And I also like to put them a little closer. Because it keeps things from moving so much. Although you can see that my wire is moving a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to use my flat nose again. Sometimes you have to kind of play with them a bit. There we go. So you want to do this wrap about 1.5 inches. So I can take this and measure it, and so far I am about 1/2 inch here. That's only about 1/2 inch, so you want to keep going. And again, you want to keep your wire close to your pliers, so you only do a little bit at a time, but that keeps the wrapping tight. And you just move your pliers down a little bit as you go. Again, as I keep going, I will measure it again just to see how close I am. So I'm now about 3/4 of an inch. See, measure again. And it's okay to measure as you go because you want to get it as close as possible. So now I'm close, about an inch here now. I have another ½ inch to go. And you can see some of my wrapping isn't necessarily uniform. You see that? I wrapped a little bit over because I missed some spots, so I went over and then did double layers, but that's okay. Again, it's organic. It's not, this is smooth wire. It's not going to hurt to wear it or have like little extra bumps on there. And it's kind of, personally, I like to have some of the organic look so that it isn't necessarily 100% perfect. And that's part of the beauty of wire. I'm going to measure this again. Okay, a little over 1.25 inches, so I need to do a little bit more. I want to be about 1.5 inches. So once you get really close, then it's important to try and, measure each time after each section of wrapping. All right, let's see where I am here now. Right, I'm going to do just one wrap. Just one, because I'm really close to 1.5 inches here. Okay. All right, so this is about 1.5 inches. It's wrapped. And this is a 24 gauge wire that I've wrapped over the 20 gauge wire. And this was the base that we had cut. And the inside of this is, again, 20 gauge, and it's wrapped with the 24. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you can either use your ring mandrel if you have one. Hi Rose, hope you're having a good day. Or you can use your finger. So I like to use my finger. I'm going to use my finger because I'm going to pretend that I'm making this for myself. So what you want to do is you take your ring here and you're going to bend this a little bit like that. Put your finger here and see if it fits. Hi Judy, hope you're having a good day. You're going to see if this fits over your finger. And you want to make sure that this is going to fit your own finger. So you can play with it. So if you see what I'm doing here, I'm playing with the wire that I've wrapped. And I hope you're having a good day, Rose and Judy. And to see if this is going to fit your own finger or not. So what I've done is I'm just sliding it over here. So you want the heart part to be up here and the wire that you've wrapped down here. And go like this and see. So eventually what you're going to do is with these two, the top, those are eventually going to go in this part of the ring. You're going to put it through, and that's what's going to hold everything together. So it's important to measure with this part to see if it fits your ring, your finger okay, or if you want to make it a little looser, a little bit tighter. So I'm putting this on my finger here, and So I can move this pretty smoothly in and out of my finger, just fine. So, and of course, everyone's fingers are a little bigger or a little smaller, depending on, I have small hands. So that actually fits pretty well, don't you think? And it slides out easily. And this is before I put it all together. So this is enough. So now what I want to do, because I don't need to put any more of this wire around the base, you want to, okay, because I'm all set with that part of it, and you can also bend the heart a little bit itself too if you want, like that. You can also bend it like that. So because I don't need to bind any more of this 24 gauge wire around here, this is the length that I want it, I can trim this wire off. So now I'm just making sure that it's wrapped around towards one end and not like in the middle of a wrap. And I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to trim as close as I possibly can. And I didn't do a great job of cutting, but that's good for teaching. Do you see how there's like a tail there? Do you see that? And so I'm going to try and cut that off a bit. Like I said, getting into the wire so that it's as close as possible is not always easy as far as cutting is concerned. So I cut that tail off. But, okay, so I'm feeling this here, and it is a little scratchy. You can probably see there's like a little end right there sticking out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to flatten it on here. Straighten my heart out here a bit just so I can get to it. There. And now it's not scratchy anymore, which is a great thing. Okay. So now I've got all the working wires, the 24 wire, all trimmed off because I don't need any more. So now what I'm going to do is let me make this round this again a little bit. And now I'm going to take these two wires, the 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to split them a little bit into a V. Hi Adam, hope you're having a good day. So a V like that. Okay. So then what you're going to do, now this is another tricky part. You're going to take the V here and under the heart here, under either end here. This is what's going to help you to keep the ring together. So when I do this, also, you're changing the shape a little bit of the ring. So when I tuck these through, you can see they're on either end. See if I go like this. What I do before I do anything else is I make sure that I still can get this on and off my finger, which I still can. The shape is still fine. So, but things can shift as you're doing all of these things, so it's important to make sure that you keep testing it just to make sure that it will fit you. Making it for someone else, put it through your ring mandrel. And just so you know the size, this is about a size 6.5 to, it's about 6 3/4. 6 3/4. Okay. So what you're going to do now, so I'm going to take your round nose pliers and you're going to put them up and over the heart ends here, and that's going to keep it in place. So what I like to do, because you can see before I do that, so you can show you, so you can see that the V ends, the 20 gauge wire is in between each side, but you can see that the part that I wire wrapped here is still kind of, it's not close to the actual heart, and you want it to be close to the heart. So what I do is I pull this up a little bit so it's close before do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your round nose pliers and you're going to bend, and I also use a little bit of friction on here so that I'm holding things together. So what I'm actually doing before I bend this so you can see is I'm putting my forefinger here on this part of the heart, and I'm using my thumb to push the wire wrapped part on so that it stays as close to the heart as possible and doesn't come undone. So basically it's like that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to bend these around. I'm doing one side at a time and doing both sides here. Now do the other side. And again, you want to have done this, make sure that it fits your finger, which it does. Okay. So now I've put it over the top. And you want to trim it just so that these go over the heart just one time. So I've done one end, but now I need to finish the second. And now I can take my cutters here and again trim as close as possible. Again, that one missed a little bit. See if I can get a little closer. This is always the trickiest part, is trimming as close as possible to the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, there's a little bit of an end here. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to take my flat nose and just flatten it here so that it's not scratchy, sticking out. Okay, there's one. So now I'm going to trim off this other 20 gauge tail now that I've wrapped it over the heart. And so now I've got that trimmed off. So now what you can do, you can play with this. You take your flat nose pliers and if you take these ends here, where the heart is, the V part, you can actually squeeze them together, which kind of crimps everything in place. And now you can, if you need to, shape the heart as you would like. So you can take your pliers, your round nose pliers, or flat nose, depending how you like, and shape this so it's more of a V. I find sometimes using some of the round nose, sometimes the flat nose works well. You can interchange them like I'm doing. And I'm basically squeezing this part here together so it's more of a V. There. And then you have your heart. So I'm going to put this on my finger. Ta-da! Heart ring. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you have any questions or need help finding materials, where to get them, or if you want to try making one of these and just need help, feel free to give me a shout out. I'm happy to help you. I hope that you have a great day. I actually am going to be leaving my beading table studio shortly because it's so beautiful out. I'm going to venture out and get some flowers for my garden. So I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next week, 1 o'clock, and be making something different as always. And if you have any requests for things you'd like to see me make, just give me a shout out, send me either a message on my Facebook page or message me or comment, take your pick. You can even comment on this. I will be saving this post like always, and you can always comment on this post afterwards. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home as much as you can, as hard as it is for all of us, I know. But it's the best way to keep all of us safe and healthy during these challenging times. But I hope you have a great day, and I hope this brought some brightness to your day. Bye.